A long, long time ago, in a land of wealth and power, there lived a high-class rich man. As he grew older, he began to realize a profound truth, that the suffering of old age was the same, whether one was rich or poor. This realization stirred something deep within him, and he made a life-changing decision. He gave up his wealth, his status, and his position in society. He walked away from the luxuries of life and ventured into the forest to live as a humble monk. In the quiet solitude of nature, he practiced meditation and nurtured his mind. Through his dedication, he freed himself from unwholesome thoughts and discovered a deep sense of contentment and happiness. His peacefulness and friendliness were like a beacon of light, and soon 500 followers were drawn to his side. At that time, most monks were known for their serious demeanor, but among them was one who stood out. This monk, though dignified and composed, always carried a gentle smile on his face, a smile that never faded, no matter the circumstances. On joyful occasions, his smile would broaden into the warmest laughter, and his happiness was infectious. Curious monks and others often asked him the secret behind his constant joy. He would simply chuckle and say, "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me, and if you thought I spoke a lie, it would dishonor my master." But the wise old master knew the source of this happiness, which could not be wiped away. He saw something special in this joyful monk and made him his number 1 assistant. One year, after the rainy season, the old monk and his 500 followers made their way to the city. The king, a man of responsibility and care, welcomed them and allowed them to stay in his pleasure garden for the springtime. This king was a good ruler, but his life was filled with endless worries. He was constantly concerned about the safety of his people, the threat of neighboring kingdoms, the squabbles among his ministers, and the financial health of his realm. These burdens weighed heavily on his heart, leaving him with little time to experience true happiness. As summer approached, the king learned that the monks were preparing to return to the forest. Concerned for the old monk's health, the king approached him and said, "Your reverence, you are now very old and weak. What good would it do to return to the forest? You can send your followers back, but please stay here with me." The chief monk thought deeply about the king's request and then called his number 1 assistant. "You are now to be the leader of the monks in the forest," he said. "I am too old and weak, so I will remain here as the king has offered." So the 500 monks returned to the forest, while the old one stayed behind. In the forest, the number 1 assistant continued his meditation practice with dedication. His wisdom deepened, and his peace grew even stronger. He became so happy that he couldn't wait to share his joy with his old master. So he returned to the city for a visit. When he arrived, he sat humbly at the feet of the old monk. They spoke little, but every so often the assistant would quietly say, "What happiness! Oh, what happiness!" The king soon came to visit and paid his respects to the chief monk, but the joyful monk from the forest continued to murmur, "What happiness! Oh, what happiness!" He didn't even stop to acknowledge the king, who felt slighted and disrespected. The king, puzzled and a bit irritated, turned to the old monk and said, "Venerable sir, this monk must be foolish from overeating. Is he always this lazy and content?" The old monk smiled gently and replied, "O king, have patience, and I will tell you the source of his happiness. Not many people know it. This monk was once a king, just as rich and mighty as you. But he gave up his throne and became a monk. He now finds that his former happiness as a king was nothing compared to the joy he feels now." The king listened intently as the old monk continued. He used to be surrounded by armed guards, always fearing for his safety. But now, sitting alone in the forest, he has nothing to fear and no need for protection. He has given up the burden of wealth and power, and instead his wisdom guards him. He has advanced so far in his meditation that he cannot help but express his inner peace with the words, What happiness! Oh, what happiness! Hearing this, the king's heart softened. The story of the happy monk touched him deeply, bringing him a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He stayed for a while, receiving guidance from both monks. Then he honored them and returned to his palace, carrying the monk's wisdom with him. Later, the joyful monk, who had once been a king, paid his respects to his master and returned to the serene forest. The old chief monk lived out the rest of his days in peace and was reborn in a high heaven world. In life, we often chase after wealth and power, believing they will bring us happiness. But the truth is, happiness is not something to be found in the external world. It's not hidden in riches, power, or status. True happiness lies within us, in our inner peace and contentment. If we stay unattached to material possessions, our happiness will grow. We must master our own fate and find joy in the smallest of things. For those who search for happiness outside themselves will always be searching, but those who nurture their inner being will find it wherever they go. This is Fuel Your Dreams, reminding you to seek happiness within and let it fuel your journey. Thank you for watching and stay blessed.